If the worst thing about you is that you're a part of a cult,
we must be doing something right. No?
yeah.
What do you know about two certified bankers? PhantasmaCast.
Welcome back to PhantasmaCast. I'm Derek.
And I'm Jake.
And today we'll be talking about two Tom Cruise bangers, Vanilla Sky and Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes, and I think we're going Tom crazy a little bit.
Guilty. Guilty. I don't care. I don't care.
Okay, let's go down the list a little bit, right?
Of our Toms?
Yes.
Okay.
So Tale of Two Toms. We did Tom
McLaughlin.
Tom Holland.
Yes.
Okay. Tom Hanks.
Guilty.
Tom Atkins.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Didn't forget. Eyes wide due to fondness and not forgetting.
And now probably the most famous Tom of them all.
Absolutely.
Cruise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a Cruise guy. I'm sorry. I'm actually not apologetic about it.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize.
Yeah. Like, my man's crazy, but he's also like sick with it when it comes to acting. More than people like give him credit for nowadays. I think that's kind of like why I initially pitched this idea was let's get in our Wayback Machine to when Tom Cruise like really was still working with auteurs and doing like drama stuff rather than just Mission Impossibles. He still does more than just Mission Impossibles, but like the gap between Mission Impossibles is closing.
Yeah, he seems to be doing more of those. Ironically enough, like the older he's getting, he's like well into his 60s, does not look like it. I look older than Tom Cruise does. But there was a time, and I don't think that time is over yet because he's got, I think, a lot more filmmaking left in him. But like there was a window of time where he was like, I want to work with interesting filmmakers. Like he even played Lestat in Interview with a Vampire, you know, and that's like, if you think about Tom Cruise today, you would go, that is not a Tom Cruise role, you know?
No.
And you wouldn't think to cast Tom Cruise in either of these two movies, which are very, I don't know, they're very cerebral kind of films.
Cerebral, existential, not just, hey, I'm going to do something that is like death defying, which is great. I love seeing that. But I also love seeing, you ever just like love someone? Or do you ever maybe once thought about the desires of your partner, Eyes Wide Shut? And he's like, no, I haven't.
So you were firmly in the we love Tom Cruise camp. When I first discovered Eyes Wide Shut, was very firmly in the I think Stanley Kubrick is overrated camp.
Oh.
Yeah. Because throughout high school, I think I had tried to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. Thought it was really boring and I couldn't get through it.
That's not really like a high school age movie.
No. I was watching the special features of the Eyes Wide Shut Blu-ray, and I think it's an interview with Tom Cruise, and he compares Stanley Kubrick films to novels in the sense that you're not always ready for a novel at a certain point in your life.
Right.
You're not like if it didn't connect with you when you're in high school, say, it could connect with you when you're in your mid-20s, when you're in your 30s. It could connect with you differently in your midlife than you maybe already did connect with it when you were younger. And I think that's absolutely true. I was absolutely wrong about Stanley Kubrick.
I love that Tom Cruise provides that pretty great insight about art and about how it can impact you a certain way or just leave no mark on you at all. and then you can go revisit it down the line and be like, oh my God.
Yes.
My brain chemistry is changing.
Yes. And even if you did like it initially, you could revisit it years later and it's a whole different experience for you. I first watched Eyes Wide Shut as a single person, you know, and Brittany and I just celebrated our 6 years. I'm watching it differently now, you know, and it says a whole lot more about, you know, jealousy and obsession and just sexual desire in a relationship than it did. So, you know, absolutely, like if you approach an auteur like Stanley Kubrick, and you didn't initially vibe with it or connect with it, like revisit it, you know, just a little later and you'll get it. I love Full Metal Jacket. I love The Shining. The Shining is now one of my favorite horror movies of all time. We watched Barry Lyndon for the first time together.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I absolutely was like, this is amazing. This movie's hilarious. And I was probably the only one laughing.
Yeah, it is really hilarious. I still wasn't mentally prepared for what it was.
You just need 5 more years.
I just need a couple more years. I just need to let it marinate. I'll come back to it. Like, I still don't fully love 2001. But I respect the audacity of it immensely.
2001, even, I was on a plane from Germany to Atlanta. And I was like, I'm going to be on this fucking plane for 8 hours. If there's one thing that's going to make me watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's being trapped in front of the screen. And not having a phone to like distract me because I'm not paying the fucking internet bill. I'm going to watch 2001. And I actually was like, for the first time in my life, I was maybe 31 or 32. And I was like, I get it now.
Wow. Okay.
So even 2001: A Space Odyssey, you'll get there.
Was there like a specific moment where you were like, it's clicking into place? Or was it just once it's over, credit rolled, like, yes, 2001, a good year?
I don't know. Like I think I can chalk my disdain for the movie initially up to just not having the patience to try and understand it. And I really was like, I want to try and understand this movie. And especially towards the end, after you get to the point where Hal has like killed all of the rest of the astronauts, and the main character gets swallowed up in a black hole, I think is what happens.
Sure.
and he just gets fucking catapulted through time. I was just like, okay, I don't have to fully understand this.
No.
And then when you kind of let that go, you can allow yourself to like just enjoy whatever is coming at you, you know?
Yeah, like understanding takes a backseat to experiencing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, just coming into these podcasts, I like, my initial thing is like, I need to understand these movies and be able to like say something smart about them. But like, it really isn't about that.
Yeah, like I enjoy Vanilla Sky immensely. Do I know every single little like clue that's hidden in there?
Right.
No, but that's part of the fun of experiencing it and going back and re-experiencing it is finding those little clues and stuff.
Let's launch into Eyes Wide Shut.
Okay.
And talk about our experience. Eyes Wide Shut. Stanley Kubrick's daring last film is a bracing psychosexual journey, a riveting suspense tale, and a career milestone for stars Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Cruise plays a doctor who plunges into an erotic foray that threatens his marriage and may ensnare him in a murder mystery. After his wife's admission of sexual longings, as the story sweeps from doubt and fear to self-discovery and reconciliation, Kubrick orchestrates it with masterful flourishes. Graceful tracking shots, rich colors, startling images, bravura. I've never seen that word.
I think it's
once.
bravura.
Bravura?
No, we're both butchering it.
Bravura traits that make Kubrick a filmmaker for the ages are here to keep everyone's eyes wide open.
They did it. Okay.
So I think starting with the title, right? Eyes Wide Shut, it refers to a kind of sense of willful ignorance.
Yes. Okay.
You know what the problem is, but out of, I guess, fear, you try to avoid it. And that's where we find our two main characters. The film opens up with, well, literally, the first shot is a shot of Nicole Kidman's bare ass, which, you know,
Points on the board already.
They didn't mention that.
No.
In the description. But they're getting ready to go to a party, and Bill Harford is a doctor, and you kind of get the sense that his clientele are kind of the upper crust, right? So he's not just any doctor, he's a well-established, successful doctor. And they're going to one of his clients' Christmas parties, the Zieglers. And that's kind of what catapults the story into this kind of psychosexual,
Like Odyssey.
obsessive Odyssey. Odyssey is a great term for it. Yeah. So at Ziegler's party, Bill, played by Tom Cruise, and Alice, Nicole Kidman, they are both offered these temptations.
That's a great way of putting it. That's exactly what happens. Yeah.
They both allow themselves to be flattered by these people who, and I'm going to use your words because you're better at them than I am. They seem to be conjurations of the male and female fantasies.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm glad that struck a chord with you.
So with Alice, you have this charming Hungarian art dealer.
Yes, he is so Hungarian.
He's so European in his kind of advance, because like she's sitting there and she's kind of bored. Earlier in that scene, she's with Bill, and she's like, "Do you know anyone here?" And he's like, "Not a soul."
Absolutely not. And
So-
everyone's just like kind of like a copy paste of them at different stages of their
Yeah.
careers or lives too. So it's kind of funny.
And so she's, you know, at the bar, kind of bored, and she's drinking champagne, and she sets the champagne down, and she gets the attention of Sandor Savast, and like there's nothing overtly sexual about his first advance, but it's like so sexual. She sets her champagne down, and he grabs it, and she's like, "Oh, that's my champagne." And he goes, "Oh, I'm absolutely certain of it." And then he just gulps it all down, but he doesn't chug it. He like slowly, sensuously just like sips the whole thing down and brings the champagne down. And he's like, "What'd you think of that?"
It's like, do you want to be this champagne glass? Do you want me to hold you like that?
"Do you want me to drink you like that?"
Yeah.
And, you know, he reveals that he has friends in the art world, and she says she used to manage like a failed art gallery. And so, like, you know, this man is kind of like everything the female fantasy wants him to be. You know, I don't want to speak for women, but like, I think there's a pretty good chance that like that level of just charming would work to a certain degree.
I don't think the movie's saying this is what all women want,
Right.
But this is specifically
Something she wants.
that would work for her.
Yeah. And then while at the same time she's having this exchange with Savast, Bill is actually talking to these two really attractive young models, right? And they're just kind of fawning over him.
Yeah. Emphasis on young.
Yeah. And again, you know, male fantasy, two chicks at the same time. You know, like, and they're trying to like, they're draping themselves over him. They're like, would you like to go see where the rainbow ends? You know, they're just trying to get him away, you know?
Yeah. They're very much like, like doing the little light touch. fawning over him. Yeah, you said it.
And
Nailed it.
Alice sees this. And one thing I love about this movie and the way that this Odyssey kind of plays out is every time Bill is given these temptations, these opportunities to engage in infidelity, we don't quite know what he's going to do because they're always interrupted. So, you know, these young women, they're trying to like take him away, presumably to fuck his brains out. But then Ziegler's man is like, we need you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
What's clearly going to be a three-way here, but Dr. Bill, if you'd come with me.
So he goes upstairs and finds Ziegler is in the bathroom. Clearly, like, maybe it's after he's had sex with this woman, or
Yeah.
they were about to.
He's like putting on his suspenders afterwards.
He's just put his clothes on. She is still naked, passed out because she's experiencing an overdose right now. And Ziegler has called him up to like deal with this fucking problem for him. And so one thing I kind of noticed, and I tried to look at it from like a class perspective too, because you know, you can't ignore the dynamics of the rich and powerful in this movie. But that was my first kind of thing I noticed, where it seemed, at least in this movie, that fidelity seems to be only a virtue of the lower classes.
Yeah. Like they even joke about it, like Ziegler's wife, when he's like, Nicole, he's like, Alice, you look beautiful. And I don't say that to every woman. Do I? He's like, he of course does.
Right. Like you've seen he's married, right? But like he has entered into this kind of liaison with this woman almost effortlessly, you know? It seems like when he calls Bill up to take care of this problem, it's more so he doesn't want this woman to die at his party than being, discovered for his infidelity, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. And I think that takes us, that kind of thought will pop up again later. And then even Sandro Savast, when he's talking to Alice, he says something along the lines of, I find that marriage makes lying a necessity for both parties.
Yeah, which could be some Hungarian bullshit, or it could be rich people bullshit.
I think it's rich people bullshit.
I think it is.
Yeah. The last Alice sees of Bill is with these two women, but then he's taken away to go deal with Ziegler's problem, right? And then we come to probably the most devastating scene of the movie. It's, I don't think it's that night. I think it's the night after. They get stoned. And then Alice almost like playfully at first, because they're like stoned, they're kind of like vibing with each other.
Yeah, they're just laying down on the bed.
And she goes, tell me something. Those two women, you didn't happen to fuck them, did you?
Yes. I love this. Her delivery is the classic, like, I just think it's funny that thing, you know? But it's, did you happen to fuck those girls? She draws out every single word a lot in this, which can be infuriating for some people.
Yeah.
But just makes me go, I lean in to it, so it works on me. But yeah, continue.
Well, that whole scene, you're kind of like waiting at the edge of your seat for her to like get the next fucking jab in. And he's like, no, I didn't have sex with those two women because
I'm a doctor. Serious.
well, because I love you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that fucking pisses her off. She's like, you're telling me the only reason you didn't fuck those two girls is out of love for me?
Yeah. Out of consideration
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Sir, Mr. Doctor.
Yeah.
And then she goes on to reveal that the previous summer, when they were on vacation in Martha's Vineyard, she had noticed a rather handsome naval officer and had a crazy kind of sexual desire for him, had a fantasy, right? And I think she even is like, I was so scared because if he had even said anything to me, I would have given everything up to be with this man.
Yes.
And, even to the point where she's like, the next day I woke up very scared. And I didn't know if it was because I would see him again or if I would be relieved that he wasn't there, because then I wouldn't have to deal
With the desire.
with the desire.
Yeah. I love that whole thing is just because he keeps tripping over his own dick.
Yeah.
Trying to be like, but I love you, but we're married, but we have a daughter. And she's like, you seem so sure of yourself.
Yeah.
And he's like, hold up, I'm sure of you. And that's just, what? What is that even? I'm sure of you?
Yeah.
And she's like, let me tell you something you have no fucking idea of.
He's hiding behind platitudes, really, is the only thing that he has. And that's the mask that I had mentioned earlier. At one point she goes, so you're telling me that like when you are examining women's breasts, like that is purely like a doctor thing for you? You don't think about how attractive these women are? And he's like, I assure you, I don't. And then she's like, well, what about these women? You don't think that they wonder how big little Doctor's Dickie is? You know, she says that.
Yeah, what, I think it's like what Mr. Bill's Dickie Wiki might be like. Yeah. And then he plays the serious doctor thing. He's like, no, what if what I find is so serious?
Yeah.
It's just like,
And
take another hit, Tom.
and it's like that's the first moment where you see that who he is a mask. It's a character he's putting on. It's a defense mechanism. Because he says it himself. He's like, you know what men are like, but I'm not one of those men, you know? And it's like, and then her whole point is, of course you're like other men. Yeah. Of course you are. And just because we're married doesn't stop me from being devastatingly attracted to this man I have only met once. She didn't even meet him, right? She just saw him across the room.
Yeah.
And she is she's obviously operating from a very hurt place. And she's kind of weaponizing jealousy, you know. To what end? We're not sure, you know. Maybe the pot really is making her aggressive, but like she just wants him to feel a little bit of what seeing him talk to those two attractive models made her feel, you know.
Yeah, and I think on a different level, his story is just that. It's a story of what happened, what really happened. Oh, I went and saw Ziegler. Kind of. You left out a big fucking part of what really went on in that room.
Right.
So you're not Mr. Virtue being like, I would never hurt you. I'm going to only tell you the truth.
Uh-huh.
No, you will protect yourself. You are like other men in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like other women in the regard that like if she sees someone fucking hot, that's going to get her going.
Yes.
It's about what you do with those things. And he's just like, I'm going to ignore it.
He's like, just because I tell myself that I'm in this happy marriage, regardless of what my like deep hidden thoughts are, I'll never act on it. So it doesn't matter. And she's like, but it fucking does matter, you know?
Yeah. Even if you don't act on it, it does matter.
And so, but even this exchange is interrupted.
Oh.
he gets a call, and one of his other clients has just passed away. And he's like, I got to show my face. And maybe he's like relieved that he has to be called away so he doesn't have to like deal with this.
He doesn't have to respond to it.
Because
he's got to sit on that.
Yeah. He's just had his masculinity challenged. His masculinity in his relationship, in his marriage, challenged in a way it never has been before.
Right.
And so he's like, thank fucking God this guy kicked the bucket because I'm going to go. And then I think for the rest of the night, you have all of the arguments that he's making, these kind of, these weak ass arguments that he's making just all get knocked down one by one. And so the first thing is he goes to the client's house, and the client's daughter is there, and she is distraught. Obviously,
she's an older woman. Yeah.
She's a little older. I think we both were like, she kind of looks like Nicole Kidman, but like, like a slightly less attractive version of Nicole Kidman.
Like, is going through a rough time. Looks haggard.
And I don't think that was accidental, because even her boyfriend who comes in later looks like Kmart Tom Cruise a little bit.
Yeah.
And so he's there, he's trying to comfort her. He's trying to do the doctor thing. He's got his mask on. And then she goes, Marion, she says, I love you. I love you desperately.
Yeah. Just starts kissing him.
Yeah. She says, I want to throw away everything to be with you,
Yeah. Even just living by you is enough.
Yes. Yes.
Like that's
I don't want to go away with Carl,
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't either. But like, yeah, it's the same kind of desire that Nicole Kidman was just.
It's like almost immediately, like when you said, of course these women don't think like about me romantically. It's like
bullshit.
This woman wants to throw away her entire life for you.
You sound so sure.
Yes.
And
she kisses him, but he doesn't immediately recoil, right?
No.
But he does stop it and is like, you need to think about this. You've just gone through something traumatic. Like, you don't love me. We barely know each other, and then that exchange is again interrupted by Carl coming, and he gets to conveniently leave, without having to like fully deal with like the gravity of like this woman professing her deep-seated desire for him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just, well, bye.
Yeah.
And she's just
I was actually on my way out,
okay.
Yeah. So he leaves that interaction kind of shaken, and he's walking the streets of the village. And I think that's when we get that shot where like he starts thinking about like his image of Alice with the naval officer.
Yeah, the naval officer, yeah. Which I said looks like a 1920s porno. Don't ask me how I know that. Back me up in the comments if you think it looks like a 1920s porno.
It's also shot. The shutter speed is like I think ramped up too because it's very kind of like jerky.
Stilted.
Yeah.
It's no, never mind. I was gonna say, it's jerky already.
And he's just kind of pissed. Like he's had his masculinity challenged. He's had this belief that he's just the good doctor challenged. And then he runs into this, it's like a gang of college guys, right? And they bump into him and they call him, a bunch of homophobic slurs. And so again, he has that challenged. And then he runs into Domino, who is quite obviously a prostitute, and she's like, "Would you like to come up?" And one thing I noticed about this whole sequence is that he lets her drive.
Yeah. And she's not aggressive.
Uh-huh.
She's very polite, soft-spoken, just like, so you're just walking around kind of thing. Not like, hey, big dog, want to come into my apartment? She's just, hey, what's up?
She's like, would you like to
How you
go
doing?
in? He's
Yeah.
like, that's where you live? And she's like, yeah. And so he agrees to go in with her. And we have this kind of, I don't know, like an awkward exchange. Like, you know, he is, I think where his state of mind is let's see, you know,
Yeah.
if she gets to, you know, have these thoughts, I get to fuck this prostitute, you know. Maybe he's trying to get back at her. Maybe he's trying to figure out for himself, like, okay, maybe I do have these desires, and maybe I'm not as good of a guy as I try to pretend to be.
Yeah. Or it is an opportunity for him to not wear the doctor bill mask. Like that's his professional life. You're interrupting by confessing your love during a visit. But if he's just down the street, then he's just Bill. He's Love Doctor Bill. Yeah, sure, I'll come in.
But he's not he doesn't drive that. He lets her do it. Right. And I think that's part of his kind of timidity. Like he's dipping a toe in, you know, even so much so that like after, like, he's like, oh, I suppose we should talk about money. And she goes, okay. And they decide on a number, and they go and sit down on the bed. And there's this great shot where it's a close up of both of their faces. And I noticed very clearly Domino comes to him to kiss him. He stays still on his side of the frame, and she comes in, and I'm like, okay, he's like, I want to experience this, but I'm not going to, like, he still has a mask on of this good guy. Like, he's letting this happen to him rather than seeking it out, you know?
Yeah. Not one to initiate, just like a passive infidelity. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they cut during the kiss or right after the kiss to Nicole. Just eating cereal.
Yes.
Watching-
she's eating
watching
like
the news.
cookies. Yeah. She's up waiting for him. Because he's supposed to be at his clients, you know, and then she even calls him, like,
Interrupted.
He can't have sex with the prostitute because he gets a phone call from Alice, and she's like, are you going to be very long? And he comes up with a lie, and is like, I don't know when I'm going to get home.
Yeah. I like that Domino chimes in after that. Is like, is that Mrs. Dr. Bill?
She knows the score. But I think that phone call is enough to kind of get him to go, what am I doing? You know? And so he pays her and he leaves. And he starts aimlessly walking the streets again and finds the bar that his old college buddy, Nick Nightingale, is playing at.
Yeah. Who was at Ziegler's party?
Yeah, that's how they kind of reconnected. And then Nick is, you know, they get to chatting, and Nick is like, well, I actually have another gig I got to play tonight. It's hush hush. And then, you know, one thing I do notice is in these scenes with Nick, Bill, I think he puts on like another mask, you know, because he gets very animated around Nick.
Yeah. Like old chum. Like, how the hell are you doing, Nick?
Yeah. Like all the shenanigans we used to get up to together, you know, like
before you dropped out.
Yeah. And so he's like, do you think there's a chance in hell I'm gonna let you go off to this like orgy and not let me come along, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, Bill, don't. And he's like, no, I'm going to go, you know? So he gives him the password, and then he's like, you're not going to get in because it's a costumed party. So that takes him to the Rainbow costume shop, which, you know, harken back to earlier when the models are like, we're going to show you where the rainbow ends.
Yeah. Which is completely intentional.
Yeah. And so this is probably the most off-kilter scene in the whole movie.
I have a
I
theory.
think.
I have a theory about it too.
And, like I really have trouble with this scene because I really don't know where it fits into the narrative or where it fits into Bill's Odyssey. But essentially, the costume shop owner, is taking him through the store. He's showing him, the costumes he has for sale. But then he hears something, and he goes into a room and he finds out that his daughter, presumably underage, is like having sex with these two Japanese men with inexplicable accents.
Yeah.
And he's like, Millich, he's like, gentlemen, have you no sense of decency?
Can't you see that she's a child?
Yeah.
Which is the only indication really that we get that she's probably not 18.
Yeah. And the daughter, played by Lilia Sobieski, runs over to Bill and kind of uses him as a shield, And so he kind of gets to feel that kind of like savior thing. And she whispers something into his ear. And we don't get to hear what it is.
Yeah, and then she has like a Cheshire cat like grin.
Yeah.
Afterwards too. Which is not the type of attitude I would expect an underage girl who just got caught in front of a stranger too.
Yeah.
To behave.
Yeah. And then Millich is like, we will see what the police think about it, and he locks them in there. And then the scene just ends. Anyways, after that scene happens, it's kind of hard cut to he's on his way to the address that Nick gave him.
Yeah. Fidelio.
And what he finds there is something, I think, metaphorically is supposed to be something completely out of his moralistic viewpoint of the world. It's like, okay, I would never cheat on my wife because I love her. Now I find myself at this masquerade orgy, where identities are hidden. You can do whatever you want to whoever you want, however you want.
It's a hall pass.
Yeah. So, and then that's where you kind of get into the kind of the class part of it, right? These are some of the world's most powerful people. Later, Ziegler's like, if I told you their names, I'm not going to tell you their names. But if I told you their names, you wouldn't sleep so well at night.
Wonderful Sidney Pollack delivery. I love him.
Yeah. It's this sense that like it's this world that that someone in Bill's position, despite being a successful doctor, is not meant to see. It's forbidden,
Yeah, he literally didn't get the invite.
Yeah. And then there's a woman there. I think she's only credited as Mysterious Woman. She's in a mask and she pulls him aside and is like, you have no idea how much danger you're in. We need to get you out of this. And he's like, but what?
Yeah, I think you got me confused with someone else.
Yeah, he's trying to play this part while literally wearing a mask. And they eventually find him out. They call him into this like throne room kind of thing, and everyone's standing there staring at him, and he's like, "Oh shit!"
I love that turn.
Yeah,
it's such a good turn. It's punctuated by the best like just piano, very simple piano driven scene. Just ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. The score is so sparse in this movie, and it's great. It's definitely a punctuation.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's the password? He's like, well, Fidelio. And they're like, okay, that's all good and well, but what about the second password?
Yeah, all the guys in the background.
And he's like, I seem to have forgotten. The weakest fucking thing. Like, he can't lie.
He's pat in his pockets. I must have left it in my other mask.
And then They're like, you've been found out. Take off all your clothes. And then the mysterious woman goes, stop.
Yeah.
Basically like, I offer myself as tribute.
Yeah, from the balcony.
Yeah.
Very Shakespearean, very theatrical.
Also, I'm going to tell you a little bit of trivia.
Okay.
The mysterious woman,
Yeah.
clearly in body, not played by this person, but the voice of mysterious woman is Kate Blanchett.
No.
Yeah. Go back and watch it, and you'll hear
That's
it.
awesome. Okay. So then I wonder if that's where Kate Blanchett and Todd Field started like becoming like collaborators, because Todd Field is Nick Nightingale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's great. Bless you, Eyes Wide Shut, for
Making
giving us
that
that,
happen.
making that happen.
But yeah, she's like, you know, I will redeem him, you know, and I think that's like basically offering herself up as sacrifice for his indiscretion, you know.
Yeah, I'll take the brunt of the punishment for him.
And I think in a way that is a way for this secret society to make him complicit, you know, because he clearly knows something bad's going to happen to her. He doesn't know what, but like, you know, I think they're trying to like, instead of buying his discretion, it's kind of being like, hey, like, you're now a part of this, so zip it, you know?
Yeah, the implication is there.
So they let him go. He comes home, and Alice is having this like fitful dream, you know? And she wakes up, and he's like, what was your dream about? And she basically is just like, I was fucking all these men, you know, like he just got back from an orgy, and she's like, I had a dream about being in an orgy. And I think that, it's another knife to him. It's another twist of the knife where, God damn it, she still is, you know, like she's having these thoughts, you know? And so the next day, he retraces his steps, and I think he's trying to give himself a more active opportunity to partake in kind of his sexual desires. And I'll go through them real quick. He hits up the bar where he met up with Nightingale. He can't find him. He discovers that Nightingale was kind of like whisked away by these mysterious muscle men and never to be seen again.
A great scene with Alan Cumming.
Yeah. Who also is like kind of like giving him fuck me eyes, dude.
Absolutely.
Well then, Bill, you know. He goes back to the costume shop where he has that exchange with Millich, and Millich like offers him his daughter. He goes to the orgy mansion where he's given a note that's addressed to his name.
Some goons in a car drive up to the gate and just go.
They just hand him an envelope. And that's when they're like, okay, they know who you are now. And I love the note. It's like give up your inquiries, comma, which are completely useless. You know, we hope that this will serve as your final warning.
Yeah,
or
we
whatever.
hope this is sufficient enough for you.
He goes back to work. He calls. This is something I think I did not kind of register until like literally my last viewing of it. But he calls Marion.
Oh, really?
Presumably is like an easy lay is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
He calls, and then Carl, her fiance, answers the phone.
Yeah, now I remember it.
And he hangs up. And then what happens right after that? He goes to Domino's apartment.
Yeah.
So I think he's like, fuck it. I'm going to be active in seeking out an indiscretion, you know? And he goes to Domino's apartment. She's not there, but her roommate is. And he's being very forward with the roommate, and she's kind of just like, oh fuck, like
It's Dr. Bill.
this is great, and I really wish I didn't have to say what I need to say because this is kind of hot. And it's really, I think the scene is really funny because it's the first time we see him overtly trying to fuck someone.
Yeah.
And all he's doing is he's just like playfully repeating what she's saying.
Like David Caruso in Jade.
Yes. And she's like, oh God. So Domino has HIV.
Yeah.
Just
you're
so
gonna
you know.
you're gonna need to sit down for this.
Yeah.
And he sits down. He's like, "Oh, am I?"
Yeah.
He's got that big Tom Cruise grin. Lay it on me. HIV.
Then he leaves the apartment. He finds out he's being followed. He goes to a newspaper stand and happens to look down and sees that a woman, Amanda. We know that the woman at the beginning at Ziegler's party who had an overdose, her name was Mandy. Mm-hmm. And he's like, wait a minute. So he uses his doctor card to get into the morgue to go see her. And I don't know if he can recognize if it's her or not. It doesn't really even look like her, when you see her in the morgue.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the same person to me.
It kind of tripped me out because when I read like overdose, I immediately think death. That's not always the case, right? So when he was reading the paper and it was like overdose and it was dung, dung again. And then he shows up at the hospital being like, where is she? And they go, oh, she passed away. I was like, yeah, didn't you know that? So that was just like a little ignorance on my part.
I think he was playing dumb. I think he knew she was dead. And he was like, my patient was admitted here. And then they're like, oh, she died. And he's like, oh, no? Oh, really? And,
Yeah. Okay, that would explain him maybe not being able to positively identify her at first with how he looks at her on the slab.
Yeah, he puts his head like really close to her. You think I kept wondering if he was going to kiss her or not. But I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to read what his action is in that scene. Is he getting really close because he's trying to like see if this is the same woman or not? Is this the woman who saved my life at the orgy? Who sacrificed? And then
we'll never know.
This is the result of that. Am I complicit in this?
Yeah.
And then he gets a call from Ziegler's man again. And he goes over to Ziegler's, and that's when he's like, listen, I was there. I know you were there. I know what's going on. You need to realize how much shit you're in. So just knock it off.
Yeah.
He's
like, I've been having you followed.
Yeah. Don't fuck with these people. Just let it alone. And then he's like, did you know that she's dead? He's like, yeah, I did know about it. And she was a fucking junkie. Get over it. You said it yourself. It was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And, on one hand, you're like, do I take this at face value? Do I take this narrative that the richest people in the world have constructed at face value? Or is Ziegler like lying to him and trying to, make him believe that everything is, that's just the way the world works,
Yeah. It's like, is it a capital C conspiracy or just a lowercase conspiracy?
A lesser conspiracy.
A lesser conspiracy. It's just a sex club, Bill.
Yeah.
God, we didn't kill Nick. We put him on a plane back to Seattle. He's probably fucking Mrs. Nick.
Yeah.
I think is also what he said,
Yeah.
which ties in great with Mrs. Dr. Bill.
Yeah.
That's a great scene because he is also still not wanting to fully face repercussions for the actions that he's taking. And Sidney Pollack's just like, I know what you did. Stop it. I know what you're thinking. You're wrong. And he's like, just having to process all of that. And he's like, what am I supposed to think? He's like, you're supposed to be scared.
Yeah.
And you are. But that's it. I promise you.
So just be scared, shut up, and go on with your life.
And be thankful. Yeah.
So from that, he goes home and he finds Alice is asleep again, and he finds the mask, his masquerade mask, is sitting on his pillow. And that's what I think where the metaphor of, the Dr. Bill mask comes to fruition. He's been unmasked.
Yeah.
Alice, I think found it, and she knows something's up. And so she's like, I'm laying this out, you lay it out,
Yeah. And that's never made text. It's definitely implied, but it breaks the levee for him. And he's like, he breaks down.
He's like, I'll tell you everything.
I'm gonna tell you everything.
Yeah. And then the next shot is just this beautiful kind of like close up of Alice, and she's clearly been crying for hours, and she's smoking a cigarette, and Bill's over there on the other chair. He's been crying. They've had this kind of like confession. Now they both know that the kind of like mask of marriage now has been lifted as well, and they know who each other are truly, and can they move on from this? And what I love about the end of the movie is she says that she's grateful they've managed to survive their adventures, whether real or imagined, and that the important thing is we're awake now.
Yeah.
And that's where, like the story that this movie is based off of is called Dream Story. Oh, right?
Okay. Is it Hungarian?
It's German.
Close enough? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
But that's the thing. The dream, the fog, the mask, the unreality, that these two people are living in has been pushed away, and that they know that despite knowing the truth about one another, they're still saying, I love you, and I want to be with you, and I want to weather whatever other adventures there are down the way, And so, you could look at this movie and go, oh, okay, Tom Cruise is a piece of shit because he's trying to like cheat on his wife. But it is a journey of self-discovery and deciding after the Odyssey, like, no, I do love my wife, but it's not just because I love her. It's because we've survived this ordeal and we're stronger now because of it.
Yeah, we're there for each other.
Yeah,
too. There's more nuance to it for sure, and I do like the point where she says, like, we can't let like one night define our whole relationship. It's great. That's great insight into like her character and her processing of what happened and offering that up to him, being like, I don't know if I like forgive you for it, but I don't despise you. Like, let's work it out. Mm-hmm. Let's not just, get a call and walk away from it. Like, they finally finished that conversation earlier, and it hurt. No one got out unscathed.
Right. But that's why she says we survived.
We survived.
Yeah.
And
then I think he says something too. He's like, now we're good forever. And she goes, forever scares me. Let's just say, like, let's play it by ear.
Let's just play it by ear. I know I love you.
Yeah.
Can that be enough?
Yeah. And then what's the last line of the movie?
Well, you know what we got to do? Fuck. You know what we got to do now?
Credits. And that's Eyes Wide Shut. Tom Cruise goes on a dreamlike odyssey to discover who he really is and who he really wants to be in his marriage.
Yeah, to deal with the repercussions of, you know what? Women can get horny too.
And that's really what it's all about.
That's really what it's all about. All right, let's talk about Vanilla Sky. I will read from the back here. Tom Cruise delivers one of his finest performances in this unforgettably powerful film that reunites him with his Jerry Maguire director, Cameron Crowe. Young, handsome, and wealthy, publishing tycoon David Ames, Cruise, can have anything his heart desires. Still, David's charmed life seems incomplete. One night, David meets the woman of his dreams, Penelope Cruz, and believes he may have found the missing piece. But a fateful encounter with a jealous lover, Cameron Diaz, suddenly sends David's world out of control, rocketing him on a roller coaster ride of romance, sex, suspicion, and dreams to a shocking final awakening you will never forget. So that's Vanilla Sky. That for sure is Vanilla Sky. But I want to kick off my discussion with a quote from this article that really kind of like helped me distill down what I wanted to talk about. And it's this article called The Lost Art of Vanilla Sky from Paste Magazine by Brianna Ziegler, who I actually...
Conspiracy.
Yeah, Ziegler. Yeah, no. When I saw this, I was like, hold up. And I used to, back when Twitter was Twitter, I used to follow her. Actually.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, oh shit, okay, it's meant that I would come across this article. And her quote, this quote that I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit is on Vanilla Sky. It's a film that could only have been made at the turn of the millennium. That post-Matrix technological and existential fixation with finding oneself trapped in an artificial world during a time when Tom Cruise was still at the top of his game and eager to make dramatic movies with auteurs, when Jason Lee and Cameron Diaz were still sought-after cinema regulars, and of course, when a mainstream Hollywood movie as insane as this could have been made with any budget behind it at all. That's pretty much, yes, you nailed it. But even with all that information, if you've never seen Vanilla Sky, you might be thinking, what the hell is it exactly?
Yeah.
I think love at first sight. I think second chances. I think the little things about your partner that you remember. New York. It loves New York. This movie loves New York. And even Cameron Crowe has a lot to say about this in the director's commentary track, which is fantastic. He's got like a very full and like comforting voice. He's like the nice bigger brother.
Okay.
Who's like, hey man, have you ever heard about the Stones? And like gives you an album.
Yeah.
That's Cameron Crowe to me.
Let me turn you on to the good shit.
Yeah, absolutely. He is such a music guy through and through.
I mean, Almost Famous. Come on.
Yeah, which is the movie that they did right before Vanilla Sky. The same crew.
Jason Lee's in that too.
Yeah, and he talks about it in the commentary track. Actually, his one quote describing Jason Lee. What does he say? Okay, he just says he sees a scene with him and he's about to like expand on something. He just goes, Jason kicks ass. It's just that simple. So he gets it.
Yeah.
But
also a Scientologist.
Jason Lee?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
They why they get along so well.
They go to the same. They go to the same orgies too.
That's a good one. But yeah, my favorite part. I'm not going to go over every single part of the commentary, but my favorite part of the commentary is he's watching the club scene when David first goes out in his mask.
Okay.
And he's like, "Oh man, I loved this scene. I loved cutting it together." He's like, Tom might have some things to say about this. Let me call him up right now. He just calls him. He calls him and he answers. Tom's like, "Hey brother, what's up?"
Yeah.
It's an interesting little peek into how Tom Cruise is as just like a collaborator.
Yeah.
If you call him, he'll be like, "Yo, what's up? I'm not doing anything. Let's talk about the movie."
Right.
I love that about him.
He always just seems like a genuine guy, like, and he's there to get the job done. But like, you never hear like a bad story about Tom Cruise,
unless it's the Scientology stuff,
right?
Which, sure, but
if the worst thing about you is that you're a part of a cult,
we must be doing something right. The best thing about that, why I bring it up, is that it ends right as the lucid dream starts. right after the club scene, you know? He's like, all right. And then, like, okay, Tom, talk to you later.
Okay.
And I swear they like hang up right as the cut to black.
Oh, wow.
And then
You think he planned that?
I don't know. Or there's like very clever editing to make the commentary track line up with that. But it rocks. I highly recommend checking out the director's commentary on this. And he also just shouts out the original film, Abre los Ojos, or Open Your Eyes, which came out just a few years prior. So I'm pretty sure they probably got a lot of flack for remaking a movie that only came out a few years before. But I mean, have you ever tried recommending like a foreign language film to someone who's not into movies?
They don't want to watch
Yeah.
subtitles.
Yeah.
You know?
I should say an American.
Right.
When you recommend a foreign language movie,
On the whole, middle America.
they're just like, I ain't going to read. I'm here to watch a dang movie.
Yeah.
So like, I get it. Why?
And it's
they-
already a very cerebral film,
Yeah.
too, you know?
But fun fact about that, the director Alejandro Amenabar, he worked with Nicole Kidman on The Others.
I love The Others, too.
The Others is
That's
great.
a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we can find a way to make an episode about it, I'm sure we will. But it came out the same year as Vanilla Sky.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's great. And apparently he visited the set of Vanilla Sky a few times.
Okay.
And Cameron Crowe was unaware about it until like after the fact. So he's going over some scenes like when Tom is at Penelope Cruz's apartment for the first time, when she's like picking over like, what music should I play? Crowe recounts a story where Alejandro just like kind of peeked in to see how things are going, didn't say anything, left, and then told him about it later. So he's like, I always think about that when I watch this scene. Like, just know that he was over there watching me direct and was like on board with it. And he very much considers this movie a conversation and a companion piece to Open Your Eyes.
Okay.
So it's not like, watch me do it better. It's, he saw it and was like, whoa, it just stirred something in him. And he's like, I need to like do that, but put my own spin on it too.
And that's what, you know, makes me okay with remakes, right? Like, I feel like, you know, Rob Zombie's Halloween is a very much a maligned kind of reading of the movie, but I love it because it is the Halloween Rob Zombie would make, you know?
For sure.
And so, Vanilla Sky is the Abre los Ojos Cameron Crowe would make, you know?
Yeah. Like if you're doing a remake, you're already playing defense against the film community, you know? But then, you know, what makes some remakes lauded and others like despised, right? Who knows? Like time, I feel will defend the ones that were pretty good actually versus, that was like a cash grab.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Right.
I even wrote here, I think the critical reception for Vanilla Sky was kind of mixed. Like you either loved it or hated it. There wasn't like overwhelming, like, wow or boo, but it did pretty well at the box office. And that leads me to say, remember, if it fails critically and financially, it's a vanity project. But if it succeeds for both of those, then it's a passion project, baby.
Right.
You know?
Well, I also think in my hazy memory of the early 2000s when this movie came out, and I think even after, it was marketed as a thriller, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I remember it being marketed as a thriller, and I think it's anything but a thriller. Like, I found myself in the portion of the movie where he's like falling in love with Penelope Cruz, like really kind of smiling a lot, because it is a very sweet and real and emotional kind of peek at like two people falling in love. Like, how witty they are, like their banter, you know, is so real. Like I'm kind of like can't even understand how Cameron Crowe was even able to capture that kind of like true chemistry between two people, you know?
Yeah. He, in the commentary track for those scenes when he's like, hey, I need you to like have a conversation with me and pretend like it's the best conversation you've ever had. You know, Crow starts remarking, here's where Tom like really flexes his gift, which is regarding a woman on screen. He gives you the beginning embers of love from a guy that knows how to appreciate a woman. I'm like, yeah. I think it's kind of like a joke in like the filmmaking community that like Tom, maybe a little gay, but I don't know. Like on the screen, loves women for sure.
Yeah.
He's got that dopey grin of like, damn. Like when he says that smile's going to be the end of me, I believe him for sure. Because it's going to be the end of me. Because Penelope Cruz is gorgeous.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes the movie like ultimately like so devastating is you see this very sweet and pure budding relationship happen, and then one bad decision, he gets in that car with Cameron Diaz, and it ends that utterly.
Yeah.
You know,
it's kind of in a way that he's tested in Eyes Wide Shut repeatedly. He kind of only gets one test after that night with Penelope Cruz, and the boy fails it fucking miserably.
Absolutely.
All signs point to don't get in that car.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow.
So for people who haven't seen the movie, what's the story? You know, like what's the journey that Tom Cruise's character goes on?
So he's the like heir apparent to this magazine company. So he's in his like early 30s, but he's like pulling out gray hair, so he's like worried about getting older. He's
like Bruce Wayne, you know, like eligible bachelor, the head of this like big media conglomerate, charming, handsome, can have any woman he wants.
Yeah. And Jason Lee, his best friend Brian, will point that out to him a lot and be like, you were with Julie Gianni, Cameron Diaz. And he's like, weren't you? And he's like, nah. He like plays it down. He's like, the woman of my dreams is your fuck buddy. And he's like,
that's a great line.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, bro. And they bro out a little bit.
Yeah.
Speaking of broing out, one of my favorite moments is like middle of the movie after they have like a little fight after the club scene. He's like playing with the mask on the back of his head, and he's like, oh, Brian, I thought we were friends. And he's like, come on, we're bros. I love that shit. But yeah, anyways,
Julie Gianni is Cameron Diaz.
Julie Gianni, Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
She's just kind of like inserting herself into his love life. And he's like, kind of like, I'm too busy for that, but doesn't really have anything to do at the company because he's the main shareholder. But there's this group of people, the 7 dwarves at the company, as he calls them, the other shareholders.
The board.
The minority shareholders, I think that's what they call them. Who don't take him seriously, or at least that's his opinion of their opinion of him.
Yeah.
And he's just like a playboy. Yeah. So that's where he's at. He's kind of just coasting through life, not taking anything too seriously, but has this feeling that other people don't take him seriously either. So he's sensing that there needs to be a change in his life. And then Sophia appears. And he kind of like latches onto her as, you're going to be the person that changes my life. And yes, in a way, but he does make that devastating mistake of getting in the car with Julie Gianni, who in the car,
she's like obsessed with him.
Yeah.
Like he keeps kind of stringing her along. Like it's not like he's innocent in this matter too. He plays fast and loose with women's hearts all the time. And there's a thing that like he keeps saying like soon, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. When will you be back? Don't say soon.
Yeah.
I hate it when you say soon. He
says soon.
Soon.
Yeah. You know, I think like it's a movie about how you treat people has consequences as well, you know? And he played fast and loose with this woman's heart. She was obsessed with him. She says, let's go for one last ride, you know? And he's like, sure, why not?
All right.
Yeah.
What's the harm in that?
The worst possible thing that could happen to you, apparently.
Yeah.
She fucking drives them off of a bridge and crashes, and she dies, and it just devastates his body.
Yeah. More than just his face, but he is primarily concerned with his facial
Yeah.
disfiguration.
Yeah.
When I initially saw this movie, I thought Cameron Diaz was like the annoying, like hanger-on girl, you know? But upon repeated viewings, I'm way more sympathetic with her.
Oh, yeah.
She wants love from this fucking dipshit who doesn't want to be serious at all.
Who's using her,
Yeah.
you know?
And here's a very insightful thing from Crow in the commentary is that initial scene where, he wakes up with her in bed and he's going to leave and he's like, all right. He's like, now, you have fun here while I go off to work. And she's
Yeah.
like, all right, honey. Crow is like, they're both play acting at love. They're play acting the kind of love you see in a movie. So like, they're kind of like playing into each other. And he's like, this is what you want, right? And she's like,
Desperately.
sure. But not really. And it's like, it's a deliberate choice to charade. It's a deliberate charade that's masking like the real charade.
Right.
If that makes any sense, then Vanilla Sky is your movie. But yeah, she's, and Crow also says there was like a sadness and a beauty to her that really did make her the saddest girl ever to hold a martini.
Right.
You know? So I'm very sympathetic to her. But David fucks up, gets in the car, gets disfigured. And that really makes him spiral because he just made the decision to like, I'm going to be better. I'm going to start taking things seriously. He was telling Sophia, he's like, I'm going to do something about the Seven Dwarves now.
Yeah.
And then now his accident is being leveraged against him as like, look how irresponsible you are.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to cut you out of the company. We've got Timothy Spall being like, David, you gotta shape up. You can't let this, like, everyone is upset about the accident too, but you can't let it drag you down. Like, you're being a recluse now.
Yeah. You're playing into their game, you know?
Yeah.
And so a big portion of the movie deals with his, not only the pain of the accident, but the pain of having his potential like love with Penelope Cruz being derailed, you know? And there's a very like somewhat obvious, you know, not the first time you watch the movie, but upon repeated viewings, there's a clear shift in the movie. They go out to a nightclub and it's his kind of first time out and he's kind of being a dick, you know, like,
Yeah.
not intentionally trying to like hurt people, but like he is hurt. And so he's just kind of giving it back to the world.
He's overcompensating.
Yeah.
Because he did approach her outside of this scene before this and was like, hey, I know I haven't been around, but like some things happen, right? And he's like,
Yeah.
but then I woke up today.
He's
and
wearing
I thought,
that prosthetic.
yeah, well, at the
mask.
club when
Yeah.
he initially sees her, he's not.
Yeah.
He's going full face, you know, and he's like, but I woke up today and I thought, wow, a good hair day. So he's trying to have like a sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, can we just like kind of start over or like pick up where we left off?
No,
And she's
he's
like, "Sure."
absolutely trying to say, can we just like move forward? Can we pick up where we left off?
Yeah. So then the club scene happens.
And it's like, obviously you can't,
No.
you know?
Especially not when you wear that mask.
Yeah.
Which Jason Lee, when he sees it, he goes from going like, he's at the club, he sees the mask, and he's like, oh no, he didn't tell me he was going to wear that.
Yeah.
So he's like, can you take it off? Like, you're making everyone uncomfortable.
Right. Right.
And he's like, no. He's like, I can't. Like, like, that's just part of me now. He's like, okay, but we liked the guy before the mask. You're being kind of a dick now. And he's like, I don't know what everyone's deal is.
And then Penelope Cruz, like, she's not vibing with this new version of him.
No. And yeah, and then he like aggressively confronts her after he's had many shots and just got lost in the crowd.
Mixing it with his pain meds and yeah.
So then he pulls I just think it's funny that you said you were gonna like pick up the pieces with me again. Is it the mask? Like, I got it in the back of my head now, right? Like, so what is it? And she's just like, I'll tell you later. I will tell you later. He's like, no. Let's talk about it now. Let's get all this stuff out. Let's not hold anything back. Like, life's moving now. Let's go. And she's like, I'll tell you in another life when we're both cats. And he's like, I can't believe you just said that right now. I cannot believe you just. I'll tell you in another life when we're both cats. See, that's why I love you. Like, basically. And it's like, oh. No, it's so secondhand embarrassing, like middle school infatuation.
You watch it and you're like, buddy, you are fucking this up right now.
And then and he caps it off by like that very uncomfortable close up of it's something.
Yeah. And then they leave the club. She kind of marches off and he has a fight with Jason Lee and then passes out in the street, you know?
Yeah.
And then the next morning he wakes up and Penelope Cruz is there and she's like, all right, let's start over.
Yeah.
You know,
if this is a ploy for sympathy, which it very much is, it's working.
Yeah.
But I don't have that savior bone in my body. And I do, if I so choose, have the ability to fall out of love with you.
That's a great line.
Just like that.
Yeah.
She's awesome. She's great. I can see why they definitely were like, yo, we need to get her.
She was in the original.
She was in the original.
Yeah.
Like, she's perfect. There's no replacing her. Let's get her in this movie too. And she's on board and brings just something slightly different to it, according to Cameron Crowe, because I haven't seen the original. So, but there's like little things like the line about, I'll tell you in another life when we're both cats. That is something that Penelope Cruz said to Cameron Crowe. And he's like,
oh, really?
He's like, I'm going to put that in the movie. Now. I have no choice. And he was absolutely right to do that. But yeah, she picks him up and, you know, there's a very dreamlike quality to it. When she wakes him up, she says, open your eyes, you know, which is how the movie began.
You did that so good.
It's yeah. Open your eyes. And yeah, then the sky is like kind of off. It's not real.
Yeah.
Looking, but we're just like, okay, we roll with it.
Yeah.
You know, we want them to be together. We don't want him to be the guy he was before. And she's like, I know that guy is still in there. And he's like, yeah, no, that guy's still there. I'm still that guy. And she's like, okay, well, you got to prove it.
He gets this second chance that he is pining for.
Yeah.
And then the movie from there kind of like, you know, they do fall back in love and he does get control of his company again. And it seems like all of these things that came up as obstacles for him are now he's suddenly like getting ahead of, you know. But then something goes off, you know. And I can't remember what's the first kind of thing that happens that it kind of throws a wrench in this like new second chance he's running with.
It's a little hard to pinpoint that despite the amount of times that I've seen it, because something we haven't addressed yet is this other like plot that's going on with Kurt Russell, with a David in a different time, with the mask on, in prison or like being interrogated by Kurt Russell, who's a psychologist. I have 2 daughters.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's alluded to that there's a murder that occurred that maybe David is responsible for.
Yeah, so all these things we're seeing are ostensibly him recounting that
Yeah.
to Kurt Russell.
But things just start to happen that like maybe reality is starting to get played with a little bit here, you know? He starts to see Penelope Cruz as Cameron Diaz, you know? And then everyone else is like, he's like, can't you see that this is Julie? It's not whatever.
Sophia.
It's not Sophia. Can't you all see that? And they're like, what are you talking about? That is Sophia. It's always been Sophia. And he starts to get kind of, he's violently rejecting this like kind of construct that's happening before him.
Yeah. And another thing that should have like set us off that something's not right is before he reignites the romance with Sophia, he was trying to get facial reconstruction surgery.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't. The mask is the best we can do. But during their rekindling, the doctor hits him up again and he's like, hey, my brother.
Got
like,
the magic bullet.
yeah. You're like, you know what? All it took was a little talking to get me straight. Like, I am the best face guy. Let's get that mug of yours fixed.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's that beautiful moment with the purple, like the light purple mask. Mm-hmm. And Sophia's like, okay, like, let's go through it. She's like, I loved you before. I loved you how you looked. So no matter what happens here, but let's go through with it. And she like slowly starts peeling off pieces of the purple. And it's very like emotionally vulnerable for him to just let her do it. I think at first he puts up the hand and she's like, no, I got this. And he's like, okay. He like fully surrenders to her. And then her reaction, her regarding of him now. So Crow says, like she uses Tom's best traits on him in this scene, I think, to regard him with the same like passion.
Okay.
Of like, oh, here we go. We're pulling it away. And then she just cries and she's like, oh, there you are. Yeah. You're not so bad. Yeah. You're back, you know?
Yeah.
But like, she still loved him before that. But now she gets the face too.
Yeah. It's like things are starting to go like too well, you know?
Yeah. And then appearances of Julie keep happening. One of them is I think they just go to sleep one night.
Yeah.
He has like a nightmare that his face is disfigured again, and he falls down, and then Sophia's like, no, in the bedroom, and that wakes him up. But then he wakes up next to Cameron Diaz, who's like, I'm Sophia. He's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, she has the mole right here. Like, I would never forget that. You are not her.
Yeah.
Fuck you. She's like, I don't know what to tell you. I am her.
And then we start to get these appearances of this guy played by Noah Taylor. And he's trying to talk to Tom Cruise. And he's like, just leave me alone. You know, like, you're a weirdo. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And he starts showing up again. And then the kind of like everything just kind of gets crazier and crazier. And it's like amping up to 11. And he starts to kind of suspect that maybe when the doctors fixed his face, they fucked with his mind a little bit. Because there is that kind of paranoia surrounding the Seven Dwarves that comes into play, and he thinks maybe that has something to do with it. And then he gets Kurt Russell on his side, and they go to kind of like investigate, you know, what this company is that did this.
Yeah. Life Extension, or Ellie, which I thought was cleverly teased when he's like, who's this Ellie person? Kurt Russell is asking him, who's Ellie? He's like, I don't know. Until like they have like almost a falling out a little bit. And then he sees the Ellie commercial on the TV and he's like, come back. I know what it is. We need to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go to Life Extension and he's like, hold up. I know her name. And yeah, that's confirmed. He knows her name. And then he's like, I've been here. The sense of deja vu is overwhelming for him. And then he gets the lucid dream pitch from Tilda Swinton. hell yeah. Hell yeah. This movie was designed for me. And so Kurt Russell gets like I must have missed that in the USA Today. I love that.
So basically, what life extension is something that's kind of was teased earlier, where this dog,
Benny the dog
was frozen and brought back, right? And so what it is a way for you to say you have a life-threatening disease that they don't have a cure for yet. They can freeze you and then bring you back later when they have a cure for the disease. And this lucid dream package you can buy.
It's very much a package, yeah.
Is a way for you to kind of live out a dream utopia world while you're under the ice.
Yeah. Which is kind of freaky to think, like, what's the alternative? Nothing?
Like purgatory.
Yeah. So I would have gone with, well, yeah, I want to have a nice time too. Like, I get it.
And it's revealed that, yes, he did get in the car with Julie. Yes, there was the car accident. She died. He was disfigured. Yes, Penelope Cruz, he never saw her again, And
the night after the club was the last time he saw her.
Yeah. And so he had made the decision to go under until they could find a way to fix, his face and his afflictions. And that everything after waking up on the street was his lucid dream, that he had just been dreaming for, it's an undisclosed amount of probably decades.
Yeah.
Right?
I think like over the year that comes to mind is like 150.
Wow. Yeah. And so like everyone he knows is gone. Even after that reveal, things start to get weird, and he has that conversation with Noah Taylor, and he's like, I'm tech support, so all you need to do is call me, and if things go wrong, like, we'll see if we can pull you out.
Yeah, that was at the bar when he's like, sure, buddy.
Yeah. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is he realizes, I'm in this lucid dream. I'm trapped in here. It's turned into a nightmare. Tech support!
Barreling into the lobby of the LE building, and yeah, just tech support! And then he's given a choice, right? They're like, listen, like they have found a way to fix you. But you have a choice. You could stay in here and live out, this dream with Sophia, or you could go out and move on with your life and make something new of it. It's hinted at that he put this in his contract, right? To have an out of some sort. So all of this is his choosing, or was his decision, but they've scrubbed that from his memory. So he's like, okay, he's starting to buy into it, but there's still just a hint of doubt. Like, oh yeah, so I'm like, if I say like McCabe shows up, he'll show up now, and then Kurt Russell comes barreling out. David, we got to get out of here. These guys are a cult. And you're like, seems pretty convenient, right? And then the Noah, he says, some tech support says something like, you can't appreciate the sweet without the sour. And then we pan over and Jason Lee's standing there too. And it's like, okay. He gives him like a, what's up? Nod. He's like, okay. He's starting to come around to it. But his subconscious is so strong in the embodiment of Kurt Russell's character, McCabe, that we're now realizing, yeah, he's not real. He is his subconscious, and he's clinging on to the dream. And he's like, no, don't believe it. This is real. I'm real. I have 2 daughters. And tech support's like, what are their names? He goes, like how dare you? And then can't come up with anything.
Yeah.
And just that moment of him trying to defend himself and then resigning and then being like, well, it was a nice ride. Mm-hmm. It was a great journey. Great acting from Kurt Russell there. And Cameron Crowe has a lot of wonderful things to say about this whole scene as it unfolds in the commentary. And then, but we're still missing something, right? Like, sure, we've got David. Sure, now we know that McCabe is a figment of his imagination. But like, the real star has yet to show up, Sophia. And she does. So now we are 100%, yes, this is not real, but like, it did help. Like, so he confronts her and he's like, yeah, like, you're dead and I'm frozen. So where do we go from here? And she's like, every day is like another day to turn it around. Like, it is your choice. Like, but we had a good time, right? And he turns around and he's about to like go to the edge of the building because his final test is to confront his fear of heights.
That's the thing that's going to make him wake up, right? And it's pretty ingenious, right? Because it's like he needs to want truly to wake up if he's going to conquer his fear of what was it? He was like, it's not the height, it's the fall.
It's the impact.
Yeah.
I think the moments before the impact, that's truly what scares him, not the heights. But yeah, he turns to go to the edge. He turns back around and is like, I'll see you in another life when we are both cats. And she gives him the little wave on, and that's enough for him to run over to the edge. And he's like, okay, I see it. But he looks back at her and he's like, I got it. That's enough for me. And he jumps. And yeah, then like his whole life, or like his essence, like flashes in front of our eyes as he's making his way down. And it's apparently there's a lot of clues in there too, and like personal, like Tom Cruise home movies and stuff. But yeah, it's just everything has led to this moment right before he makes the impact, and it cuts to white. And then someone says, all right, David, open your eyes. And we cut to an eye opening up, and then credits roll.
Yeah. What do you think it was that made him ultimately decide to wake up and not stay in the dream?
Like, he accepts that it was a wonderful dream, but he'd rather live, like truly live, which was the same decision he had made right before he got in the accident. So he's making that same decision again, but he's like, for real this time.
I'm going to correct things, right? Like it's a movie about regret, and I think when you think about things that you've done or mistakes that you've made, and you live in this kind of fantasy world where you try to think, how could I have done things differently, or if I had the chance to fix that, like, what would it look like? And that's really what like this whole movie is, right? It's a dream. It's a fantasy. It's not real. So you may as well just kind of go on with your life, because tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah. And even if you choose to have your fantasy be pinned to this dream girl of yours, you're still you. You still have to come home to you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he's still terrified of that. He's still afraid of turning on the light and seeing that his face, his disfigured face. And Sophia's not going to change that. So he's like, I got to wake up. I got to make a real choice, not this artificial, cozy comfort choice of, man, isn't Sophia the greatest? And I don't know. That's great. I love that. I love Vanilla Sky.
There are two movies about Tom Cruise needing to wake up from a dream and realize the reality that's in front of him, and accept that things are the way that they are,
Agree.
Self-acceptance.
Yeah.
What these two movies are really about.
Yeah. And like in today's like the movie industry, the movie climate of today, that's a hard sell.
Right.
People don't really want to look inward that much anymore, at least, because we're just inundated with content of the new thing. And like, haven't you seen the new thing? As opposed to, have you ever thought about maybe like you regret your life's choices?
You ever think about that?
You ever think about that? And I miss that era or that kind of film, which we don't see a lot of anymore. Or it's harder to find that. It's not just something that was in theaters in 2001.
Yeah, these days it's and it's not a blanket statement, you know, but like I think we as audiences are very much more concerned with living in the fantasy than you know taking the jump and just kind of living our real mundane lives.
Or at least that's what the algorithm and the data from streaming like tells us. It was like, oh, people like this comforting slop. I don't think that's true. I think the convenience of it, just you put it on and it is background noise because it's so convenient.
Yeah.
That you're not really making the choice to watch, I don't know, The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Sorry. It's probably fun, like, you know, but you put it on to do dishes, get the laundry started, and then you plop down to be like, all right, well, where are we at again? Or if you're watching with someone like, hey, catch me up.
Yeah.
Or something. And then the data says, oh, people really like this. Let's do more of that. And you wouldn't get movies like Vanilla Sky with that kind of thinking and business decisions behind it. But I think we've talked enough about Vanilla Sky, but I do want to lead us out with Cameron Crowe's words. So it was a risky film, right? He says it's puzzle-like, it's dreamy, it's up for interpretation. Was completely by design. It was Crowe's choice to make it that way. He says, the goal was a movie filled with clues and signposts, kind of like the cover of Sgt. Pepper, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Big Beatles guy.
Yeah.
Like there's Beatles references in the movie. It ends on a Paul McCartney song. He got Paul McCartney to make a Vanilla Sky song.
Oh, that's cool.
Just a music guy. And he says, yeah, every time you look at it, you might see something different. I also like that this is neither here nor there, but he calls this movie a cover of Abre los Ojos. Music guy.
What a music guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, here's the big quote that I want to end on is he says, there is a school of thought that says a movie should be clear and obvious whenever possible. From the moment it leaves the theaters and begins its journey through home video and DVD, people will be doing more and more other things while it's playing, and ultimately, it will be something on late-night television that will play while its greatest audience is half asleep. Vanilla Sky isn't obvious. It's a movie to be watched closely, but it's also a movie you can let wash over you. It's a story, a puzzle, a nightmare, a lucid dream, a psychedelic pop song, a movie to argue over, and most of all, a movie that extends an invitation. Wherever you want to meet it, it will meet you there.
And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, right? They're movies to be experienced rather than attempting to understand. We did a lot of attempting to understand here, but like...
But that's what these movies brought out of us.
Yeah.
They begged us to be like, oh, let's tinker with it.
Yeah, let's figure it out.
Let's figure it out. My last thing is... I want to reference a comment that I saw while doing my research for this, which was just someone says of Vanilla Sky, I have no desire to see it, and this is the first time in 10 years that I have heard anyone talk about it. And to which I say, open your eyes, accept the invitation of the movie wherever you want to meet it.
And that is Vanilla Sky and Eyes Wide Shut. Watch those movies, experience them,
accept the invitations,
and have a week.
Yeah, have a week. We'll see you guys next time.